afternoon. My name is Julia Paget. I'm the branch manager for the Roswell Library. Today for book break, I'm very excited to be reading a chapter from Circe by Madeline Miller. It's a fantastic retelling from Circe's point of view, and you will probably remember her from the Odyssey and her brief encounter with Odysseus for a while. So this book is obviously wrought in mythology and lovely characters, but one of the things that I really wanted to point out in today's reading was just the way that Madeline Miller really encapsulates a space. And so I'm going to start with chapter 7, or part of it, not the whole thing. And I just wanted, this is right after Circe's been banished from the god kingdom where she lived for some of the actions that she took. I won't go into those. So she was banished. Her father is the god of sun, and so she is a lesser god, and she doesn't have quite the powers that the other gods and goddesses do. So anyway, she's been banished, and this is her first encounter with the island that she is now going to live on. The next morning I stepped into my father's chariot, and we lurched into the dark sky without a word. The air blew past us. Night receded at every turning of the wheels. I looked over the side, trying to track the rivers and seas, the shadowed valleys, but we were going too fast, and I recognized nothing. "What island is it?" My father did not answer. His jaw was set, his lips bled pale with anger. My old burns were aching from standing so close to him. I closed my eyes. The land streamed by and the wind ran across my skin. I imagined pitching over that golden rail into the open air below. It would feel good, I thought, before I hit. We landed with a jolt. I opened my eyes to see a high, soft hill, thick with grass. My father stared straight ahead. I felt a sudden urge to fall on my knees and beg him to take me back, but instead I forced myself to step down onto the ground. The moment my foot touched, he and his chariot were gone. I stood alone in that grassy clearing. The breeze blew sharp against my cheeks, and the air had a fresh scent. I could not savor it. My head felt heavy and my throat had begun to ache. I swayed, but now Aeetes was back on Colchis, drinking his milk and honey. My aunts would be laughing on their riverbanks. My cousins returned to their games. My father, of course, overhead, shedding his light down on the world. All those years I had spent with them were like a stone tossed in a pool. Already the ripples were gone. I had a little pride. If they did not weep, I would not either. I pressed my palms to my eyes until they cleared. I made myself look around. On the hilltop before me was a house, wide porch, its walls built from finely fitted stone, its doors carved twice the height of a man. A little below stretched a hern of forest, and beyond that, a glimpse of the sea. It was the forest that drew my eye. It was old growth, gnarled with oaks and lindens and olive groves, shot through with spearing cypress. That's where the green scent came from, drifting up the grassy hillside. The trees shook themselves thickly in the sea winds, and birds darted through the shadows. Even now, I can remember the wonder I felt. All my life had been spent in the same dim halls, or walking the same stunted shore with its threadbare woods. I was not prepared for such profusion, and I felt a sudden urge to throw myself in like a frog into a pond. I hesitated. I was no wood nymph. I did not have the knack of feeling my way over roots, of walking through brambles untouched. I could not guess what those shadows might conceal. What if there were sinkholes within? What if there were bears or lions? I stood there a long time, fearing such things and waiting, as if someone would come and reassure me, say, "Yes, you may go. It will be safe." My father's chariot slipped over the sea and began to douse itself in the waves. The shadows of the forest deepened, and the trunks seemed to twine against each other. It was too late to go now, I told myself. Tomorrow. The doors of the house were broad oak, banded with iron. They swung easily at my touch. Inside, the air smelled of incense. There was a great room set with tables and benches, as if for a feast. A hearth anchored one end. At the other, a corridor led away to the kitchen and bedrooms. It was large enough to hold a dozen goddesses, and indeed, I kept expecting to find nymphs and cousins around every turn. But no, that was part of my exile, to be utterly alone. What worse punishment could there be, my family thought, than to be deprived of their divine presence? Certainly the house itself was no punishment. Treasure shone on every side: carved chest, soft rugs and golden hangings, beds, stools, intricate tripods and ivory statues. The windowsills were white marble, the shutters scrolled ash wood. In the kitchen, I ran my thumb across the knives, bronze and iron, but also nacre shell and obsidian. I found bowls of quartz crystal and wrought silver. Though the rooms were deserted, there was no speck of dust, and I would learn that none could cross the marble threshold. However, I tracked upon it. The floor was always clean, the tables gleaming. The ashes vanished from the fireplace. The dishes washed themselves, and the firewood regrew overnight. In the pantry there were jars of oil and wine, bowls of cheese and barley grain, always fresh and full. Among those empty, perfect rooms, I felt, I could not say, disappointed? There was a part of me, I think, that had hoped for a crag of the Caucasus after all, an eagle diving for my liver. But Scylla was no Zeus, and I was no Prometheus. We were nymphs, not worth the trouble. There was more to it than that, though. My father might have left me in a hovel or a fisherman's shack on a bare beach with nothing but a tent. I thought back to his face when he spoke of Zeus's decree, his clear, ringing rage. I had assumed it was all for me, but now, after my talks, I began to understand more. The truce between the gods held only because Titans and Olympians each kept to their sphere. Zeus had demanded the discipline of Helios's blood. Helios could not speak back openly, but he could make an answer of sorts, a message of defiance to rebalance the scales. Even our exiles live better than kings. You see how deep our strength runs? If you strike us Olympian, we will rise higher than before. That was my new home, a monument to my father's pride. It was past sundown by then. I felt the flint and struck it over the waiting tinder as I had seen Glaucus do so often, but never attempted myself. It took me several tries, and when the flames began to catch and spread at last, I felt a novel satisfaction. I was hungry, so I went to the pantry where the bowls brimmed with enough food to feed 100. I spooned some onto a plate and sat at one of the great oak tables in the hall. I could hear the sound of my breath. It struck me that I had never eaten by myself. Even when no one spoke to me or looked at me, there was always some cousin or sibling at my elbow. I rubbed the fine grain wood. I hummed a little and listened to the sound being swallowed by the air. This is what it will be all my days, I thought. Despite the fire, shadows were gathering in the corners. Outside, birds had begun to scream. At least I thought there were birds. I felt the hairs stir on my neck, thinking again of those dark, thick trunks. I went to the shutters and closed them. I latched the door. I was used to the weight of all the earth's rocks surrounding me, and my father's power on top of that. The house's walls felt to me leaf-thin. Any claw could tear them open. Perhaps that is the secret of this place, I thought. My true punishment is yet to come. I'm going to stop there. After this, you will find she gets to know the island very well, but more importantly, she gets to know herself and she finds her own strength in her exile. So it's really, it's a lovely, lovely book. I do hope that you will be able to check it out. We have physical copies. I think you can get it through Hoopla or Overdrive as well. In the meantime, I would like to remind everyone that you can, when you're reading this book or any of your books, you can still log them through Beanstack with our Resolve to Read initiative, as well as and also fall into reading. So if you've used Beanstack through summer reading, make sure that you are still logging those books. And please, when you have a chance, check out Circe by Madeline Miller. I don't think you will be disappointed. It is a page turner, and I started it on a Sunday and I finished it on a Tuesday. So Please stay safe, be well. Thanks for listening. Bye.